A white lion cub stopped a car, begging for help to save its pregnant mother. What happened next shocked everyone. Have you ever wondered what drives a tiny creature to risk everything, stopping a stranger with nothing but desperate paws and pleading eyes? It was late afternoon on a dusty, lonely dirt road far from any town. The sun hung low, casting an orange glow over the endless wildlands. Suddenly, a small shape darted into the path of an old rattling car, coming to a halt with urgent, frantic motions. A white lion cub, no bigger than a house cat, stood on its hind legs, pawing the vehicle's tire and letting out soft, pleading meows that vibrated with unmistakable fear and urgency. The driver slowed, heart pounding with confusion and surprise. Why would a wild animal act like that? The question burned in the air. The cub's wide, luminous eyes searched the car's windows, begging silently for attention and help. Then, with a strained cry, the cub bolted a few steps toward the underbrush, only to stumble and look back, desperate as if urging the driver to follow. Something was terribly wrong. The cub's urgency pulled at the soul. This was no ordinary road crossing. Instinctively, the driver stepped out, eyes scanning the nearby thorny bushes where the cub had vanished. There, barely visible through the rustling leaves, lay the injured mother lioness. Her enormous white body was still, but her breath came in ragged gasps. She carried the unmistakable signs of a life soon to give birth, round, swollen with new life. The cub, frightened yet fiercely protective, stayed close, pawing gently at her side, meowing with hope and despair intertwined. The woman's heart clenched. This moment was fragile, a thread between life and loss. Silent questions tumbled. Who could have done this? How long had they been here? And most pressing of all, could she help before it was too late? The wind whispered warnings through the sparse trees. This rescue would not be simple. Something unseen surrounded this place, a tension thicker than dust. The desperate cry of the cub echoed, pulling the driver into a story far more urgent than she ever expected. What dark secrets lie hidden in the wilderness, and what will she find if she follows this urgent plea? The journey had only just begun. Hidden in the distance beneath the dense canopy of trees, a man watched the unfolding scene with sharp, calculating eyes. His figure barely moved, blending into the shadows as silence wrapped around him like a cloak. The once respected hunter was a presence felt but rarely seen, known by the few who lived on the edges of this wild land. His reputation, once built on honest skill and tradition, had begun to twist into something darker, more complicated. The hunter's name was Marcus, a man driven not by hatred, but by desperation. For years, he had relied on the forest's resources to support his family and himself. Those who knew him whispered about how the land had turned against him. Crops failed, debts mounted, and the world outside edged harder against the fragile balance he once maintained. The pressure grew unbearable, warping his focus and leading him down a shadowed path. Marcus hunted not out of cruelty, but necessity, though the law did not see the difference. Endangered animals became trophies not for glory, but for money. Money that might keep a roof over a struggling household's head. The white lioness marked one of his latest targets, chosen because she symbolized a prize that could fetch a high price. Yet as he watched the cub's frantic behavior and the driver's gentle concern, a different emotion stirred deep within him. Regret. He was caught between worlds, his fading respect for life clashing with the raw demands of survival. Marcus's eyes lingered on the cub's desperate plea and the injured mother nearby, hope mixed with fear. Could this moment make him choose differently, or was he too far gone, trapped by his own choices? A sudden rustle nearby startled him, pulling his mind back from the edge. His hand instinctively reached for the worn collar of his jacket, a silent reminder of the family he had lost, the mistakes he couldn't undo. Was this the end of his hunted life, or the beginning of something else? The tension thickened as the unknown future held its breath, waiting for Marcus's next move. Emma's heartbeat quickened as the tiny white lion cub pawed at her car door. The dirt beneath her feet felt uneven, unstable, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. She looked into the cub's wide, anxious eyes, Hearing the sharp, urgent mews cut through the stillness of the remote road, there was no mistaking the message. Something was terribly wrong. Emma was a wildlife volunteer, someone who had dedicated her life to protecting animals. Yet even with years of experience, this moment stirred a nervous energy within her, part hope, part fear. Her mind raced. How badly hurt could the mother be? Would they make it in time? The cub's frantic cries pulled at something deeper, a knot of helplessness and fierce determination tightening in her chest. She grabbed her medical kit from the back and stepped carefully toward where the cub led her. The grass was tall, swaying lightly despite the still air, almost hiding movement. Emma's gaze sharpened. She needed to be ready for anything. What if someone else was nearby? The wilderness was unpredictable, and suspicious eyes could be watching. The roar of a vehicle in the distance made her pause, a flicker of doubt crossing her mind. Was help on its way, or something far worse? Emma's fingers trembled slightly as she scanned the tree line, catching glimpses of shadow and light, searching for signs of danger or allies. Her thoughts flashed to the mother lioness. Was she still alive? What had caused her injury? Natural accident or something more? The stark vulnerability of the cub's plea pulled at Emma's instincts. Rescue wasn't optional, it was necessary. But time was against them, and uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Emma knelt by the injured lioness, her breath steady, but her heart pounding. She spoke softly, her voice calm yet urgent. "We're going to help you. Hang on." The cub stayed close, trembling but watchful, as Emma's hands moved deftly, searching for what she could do. Behind her, silence deepened. The presence of another, a hunter, felt certain but unseen. Emma's eyes darted again. Who was out there? And what were their true intentions? Doubt gnawed quietly. Could she trust what she couldn't see? Or was this just the beginning of a far greater challenge? The soft rustle of leaves came to a sudden halt as Emma's sharp eyes caught a figure stepping from behind a thicket of acacia bushes. The man moved with a slow, deliberate caution, his weathered face shadowed beneath a wide-brimmed hat. His gaze settled coldly on the scene. The injured lioness, the small, trembling cub, and Emma kneeling with her medical kit open. The tension in the air tightened like a drawn bow. Emma rose, her breath steady, but heart hammering as she met the stranger's glance. "Who are you?" she asked, voice firm but careful, aware that any wrong word could ignite simmering conflict. The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he surveyed the lioness with an inscrutable expression. "They're wild animals," he finally said, his voice low, edged with a hardness that brooked no argument. "They survive or they don't. That's nature." Emma's eyes narrowed, disbelief and indignation flaring up. This mother is pregnant. She's not just wildlife to leave to fate, she's life, a family. She needs help, and I'm here to give it. The man's face twitched, and for a moment, a flicker of something older, regret, pain, crossed his features. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by a stubborn defensiveness. "I've been hunting these lands for years. It's not my place to babysit the wild." Emma took a step forward, her voice rising with urgency. "You don't understand what it means to protect, to cherish these lives. They're part of something greater. If we don't act now, she might not make it." Her gaze searched his, searching for any crack in his resolve. The man's jaw tightened, eyes dark with conflicted emotions. "You think saving one lioness will change anything? This land is harsh, and life is harsh. Not everyone gets spared." Emma's reply came softly, but filled with unwavering conviction. "Maybe not, but fighting for those who can't fight for themselves, that's where hope begins." For a long moment, silence stretched heavily between them, the wild holding its breath. Then the hunter's voice broke through, quieter now, almost reluctant. "If you're so sure, what will you do when it gets harder, when others don't care?" Emma met his challenge without flinching. "Then I'll keep fighting, because giving up isn't an option, not when lives depend on it." He stared at her, searching her face, as if weighing truth against his own shadowed fears. In that charged moment, the boundary between strangers began to blur. The wilderness around them seemed to lean in, watching. The first hesitant thread of understanding, fragile yet real, had woven itself into the tense air. The man's eyes darkened with unfathomable weight as he stood silent for a moment, the wild around them holding its breath. Emma glanced at the cub again, then back at the man. There was more behind those guarded eyes, something raw and buried. Slowly, he spoke, his voice dropping into a hesitant confession. I didn't always walk this path. He looked away, the shadows crossing his face like a veil. Once, I had a family, a wife, a son. The words trembled in the air, fragile and heavy. We lost them. I wasn't there. His hands clenched loosely at his sides, as if haunting memories pressed upon him. Emma's heart clenched with unexpected sympathy. I'm sorry, she said quietly, uncertain how to bridge the gap that pain had carved so deeply. He looked back, eyes glistening like the distant edge of twilight. After they were gone, I tried to hold on, to save what I could. But the land changed, the animals grew scarce. I need to survive. His gaze sharpened, a flicker of something desperate shining through. Hunting was the only certainty left. Trophy or not, it was for a future I thought I deserved. A chance to undo what I lost. Emma absorbed his words, a storm of questions sweeping her mind. Could this man truly be driven by loss instead of cruelty? Was he trapped between regret and necessity? Did his grievance justify the path he walked now, or did it mark a man lost beneath his own pain? A tentative softness crept into his voice. You think I want to be this man? I'm tired, but I don't know how to stop. His eyes searched hers, hopeful and fearful. How do I live with what I've done and still find a way back? Emma felt a fragile thread stretching between them, fragile as the cub's future. Her heart urged her toward compassion, but doubt gnawed at her resolve. Could he truly change? Could anyone? And even if he did, would the animals be safe until then? He swallowed hard, waiting. The silence thickened as the wild seemed to listen. In that suspended moment, hope and fear tangled inseparably. Questions unanswered, yet a door faintly ajar. Emma studied the man carefully, sensing the fragile weight behind his words. The cub's anxious eyes stayed fixed on her, vulnerable and pleading, making her decision more urgent. Despite the tension between them, Emma felt a shift stirring inside her. This was a person struggling, not just a hardened hunter. She stepped closer and softened her voice. Listen, I'm not here to argue or judge. Her hands stayed visible, open. That lioness needs help. She's scared, injured, and most of all, she has that cub depending on her. You don't have to choose between survival and kindness. We can do this together. The man's eyes flickered, conflicted and uncertain. The walls around him looked brittle now, trembling just enough for hope to slip in. Emma drew a small kit from her backpack, filled with medical supplies. She moved toward the lioness cautiously but firmly, aware that time was short. I've worked with wild animals a long time, Emma said quietly, keeping her gaze steady. You know better than anyone how fragile this land is, how much we depend on each other. Protecting these creatures doesn't take away from what you need. It can be part of a new path. The man didn't reply right away. His gaze drifted to the cub, whose tiny body trembled but remained stubbornly alert. Then back to the lioness, laying still against the cracked earth. Slowly, something raw and human broke through the guarded exterior. Without words, the man knelt beside Emma, offering a shaky hand to help stabilize the lioness. His breath hitched as he looked into her eyes, a silent agreement passing between them. They were no longer enemies, but two people with a reason to fight for life, together. Emma began cleaning the wound with gentle, precise movements. The cub nuzzled closer, and the man's shoulders lowered, tension easing. I don't know if I can fix everything, he said softly, but maybe saving her is a start. Emma nodded, hope flickering in her chest. It's more than a start. It's a choice, one that could save more than just this family. The wild around them seemed to hold its breath, watching as an unspoken promise settled in the air. They would try, for the lioness, the cub, and maybe for themselves. The dry air suddenly thickened, heavy with smoke and the distant crackling of flames. Emma's sharp eyes caught the flicker of orange at the edge of the forest beyond the dirt road. The wind shifted, carrying the bitter scent of burning wood straight toward them. The wildfire had started faster than anyone could have predicted. "We need to move," Emma said, voice steady but urgent. The lioness stirred weakly, eyes fluttering open, vulnerable but aware. The cub stayed close, pressing against its mother's side as if offering silent strength. The hunter stood, the old instinct to survive flaring in his eyes. Yet now it was different. This time, survival wasn't just about personal gain. It was a shared mission. Emma grabbed the small first aid kit, ready to finish treating the lioness. But the smoke grew thicker, making every breath sharp and quick. "Can you carry her?" Emma asked, glancing at the man. He nodded. Without hesitation, the hunter carefully lifted the lioness, his grip gentle but sure. The cub stepped forward, pawing at his boots, restless and afraid. They had no time. The fire spread, its hungry fingers licking the underbrush, moving closer with terrifying speed. The path ahead was rough, and branches snapped underfoot, but neither stopped. Emma kept a hand ready to calm the cub, who let out a soft, distressed cry. "Stay close," Emma urged. "We stick together." The sky darkened from the smoke, the sun's warmth swallowed by a grey haze. They rounded a bend where a fallen tree blocked the road, forcing them to detour. Both struggled through thick brush, the heat scorching their skin beneath the protective layers they wore. Despite the urgency, the hunter glanced at Emma, a silent question in his eyes. Could they really outrun this disaster? She nodded, determination set hard on her face. They pushed forward, hearts pounding in unison. The fire was no longer a distant threat. It was chasing them, a relentless force creeping ever closer. Yet in the midst of danger, a fragile bond tightened, not just between two people, but between humans and the wild lives in their care. The cub, sensing their unity, stopped crying. For now they fought to survive, united by the threat and hope that tomorrow could bring something better. But as they pressed on, another sound sliced through the thickening air. Voices. Not far ahead, more people were coming. Emma's breath caught. Who else had been drawn into this firestorm, and what did this mean for their precarious alliance? The fire wasn't the only danger now. The wildfire cracked and roared behind them, a wall of heat and chaos stretching faster than any of them anticipated. The trio moved quickly through the choking smoke, the lioness cradled in the hunter's arms, her soft, labored breaths a fragile rhythm pulling Emma forward. The cub trotted beside them, eyes wide, shining with a mix of fear and fragile hope. Suddenly, a low groan escaped the lioness. She stirred, weak but alive. Emma's heart clenched. There was still fight left in her. The hunter looked down at the creature he had once seen only as a prize. Now she was a living being in need, a responsibility. For a moment, his eyes softened, shadows of regret flashing quickly before his usual hardened gaze returned. "That cub, it depends on her. We need to get out before this fire traps us," Emma said, her voice trembling with urgency and something else, doubt. Did the hunter truly mean what he said before, when he spoke of stopping, or were his promises as fragile as the smoke around them? As they pushed forward, branches scraped their faces, and underbrush snagged their clothes. The ground beneath felt unstable, as if eager to swallow them whole. Emma glanced at the hunter. His every step was careful, deliberate. But trust was a slippery thing, fragile as the fire's ash fluttering in the air. Could she risk depending on him? Could he really change? The cub let out a small cry, startled by the sudden crack of a burning branch behind them. The hunter's reaction was immediate. He shielded the cub with his body, stepping between it and the danger. That simple act shattered something inside Emma. Was this the moment his old self died, replaced by someone who could truly care? But then, as they moved on, voices echoed faintly ahead. Emma froze. Who else was facing this inferno? Allies or threats? Could the hunter's past catch up to them now? The unanswered questions swirled wild and fast, just like the fire chasing their every step. Among uncertainty and rising fear, what remained clear was the silent promise in their steps, to protect the lioness, the cub, and perhaps even each other, against all odds. But would that promise hold when the smoke cleared? Emma didn't know. Not yet. The wildfire behind them was finally contained by the dedicated efforts of the local fire crews who had arrived just in time. The air was still thick with smoke, but the immediate danger had lessened. The lioness, now resting in the back of a carefully prepared transport vehicle, showed signs of recovery. Her breathing was steadier, and the sharp pain in her eyes had dimmed. Beside her, the cub nestled quietly, a soft comfort to both the mother and those who had risked so much to protect them. Emma watched the delicate scene unfold with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. Each breath the lioness took was a victory, a promise of survival against the odds. But it was the presence beside her that brought a new depth to the moment. The hunter, his usual guarded expression now softened by something close to hope. His eyes no longer reflected the man who had once hunted for trophies and survival, but someone beginning to understand what truly mattered. They had reached a sanctuary, a place where injured animals could heal without fear. Volunteers moved swiftly, surrounding the pair with gentle hands and compassionate voices. Emma and the hunter worked side by side, coordinating care and sharing the load. It was a quiet partnership, built on fragile trust, but grounded in a shared purpose. As the lioness slowly regained strength, the hunter approached Emma. There was an unspoken apology in his gaze, a silent acknowledgement of past mistakes. "I want to help," he said simply, his voice steady but sincere. "Not just this one, but all of them." Emma nodded, feeling a cautious hope stir within her. It was not a quick fix, but a beginning, a shared promise to protect, to heal, and to learn. Together, they planned their next steps, educating the local community, strengthening patrols, and raising awareness about the fragile balance between humans and wildlife. This new alliance was more than survival. It was a chance for redemption and change. As the lioness stretched weakly under the soft sunlight filtering through the trees, Emma and the hunter stood united. Their journey had been filled with doubt and fear, but the future held something brighter, a purpose born from compassion, resilience, and the belief that even the hardest hearts could find a new path. They would face challenges ahead, but no longer as enemies. The wild was alive with possibility, and so were they. The days that followed at the sanctuary were filled with quiet healing and gentle hope. The lioness, once fragile and pained, began to regain her strength with each passing sunrise. Emma watched her closely, knowing that every small movement was a victory over the cruelty fate had forced upon her. The cub, too, blossomed under the warmth of safety and care, its urgent cries now replaced by soft purrs and playful nudges. But the true miracle was in the transformation that unfolded between Emma and the hunter, whose name was revealed slowly as Samuel. The man who had once stood as an emblem of destruction had begun to embody renewal. No longer driven by desperation or blinded by past mistakes, Samuel's hands, once steady only in taking life, learned to mend and nurture. He listened earnestly as Emma shared knowledge, respecting the delicate balance that kept the wilderness alive. Their conversations grew deeper, revealing shared pain and a common longing to make amends. Samuel spoke openly about loss, regret, and how wildlife had once been a part of his family's legacy, something he had unknowingly shattered before he found the courage to rebuild. Emma's heart softened with understanding. She realized that compassion could heal wounds far older than any injury on a lioness's body. Together they reached out to their community, educating children and adults alike about coexistence and respect for nature. Patrols were formed, not with weapons, but with cameras and compassion. The sanctuary blossomed into a beacon of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, change was possible. As the lioness finally roared once more, strong and free, Emma and Samuel stood side by side, united not just by purpose, but by a newfound friendship rooted in forgiveness and hope. Their story was no longer just about survival, but about rebirth, a lesson echoing far beyond the wild. If this story touched you, share in the comments which moment moved you the most. What lesson do you believe shines brightest here? Subscribe to the channel. Your presence truly means the world. And remember, the next story might reach even deeper into your heart.